Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Change is Hard, y'all. I'm Leslie, and I'm here with my friend and fellow podcaster, Shay. And we're really excited because our other friend and podcaster, Erin, is here in person from Pennsylvania.
I escaped Scranton just for a bit.
Yay. We're excited she's here. And we're also very happy that we're going to be talking to Erin's good friend, Donna. And I'm going to let Erin actually take the lead on this since she and Donna have known each other for a long time. So go ahead, Erin.
Oh, okay. So I don't normally do this part. I'm a little nervous. Okay. This is my friend Donna, and we have known each other a scary 20 years now.
Yeah, about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We met in college at the same, I'll just say, interesting, ultra-conservative Baptist university, and have both since changed our mindset quite a bit on that place. But Donna is the creative, artistic one in this friendship. I am the blunt instrument, athletic one. And we've just had a good time as friends over the years, doing different trips. And Donna and her twin sister Deb are big parts of my life and examples to me of what it is to be strong women and raising strong women. And so I just admire her work and what she stands for. And so hoping to get to know some more about her and big changes that she's navigated in life. So at this point, I'll have Donna speak for herself about kind of just a little bit more of your background, Donna, what you want to share about it, and then we'll go to a next question after that.
Well, first I want to say welcome, Donna. I'm really glad you're here with us.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity. I have been listening to the podcast, and it's so powerful. And I'll get more to that later, but I really feel it's important for other people to hear these stories because we feel like we're not alone. But I will start with my background. I definitely grew up in what you have now termed a high control religion background. Bill Gothard was also part of my life.
Yeah.
I was born, the minute I was born, I went to the church that I grew up with up until I graduated from college. It was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. We had revival weeks. We had missionaries coming in. We had evangelists. King James Version of the Bible. Only women can't wear pants. Women are submissive. The men are the leaders. Go forth and multiply. The quiverful, the whole shebang. I grew up in all of that. Not only did I grow up in that with my church, I also, from kindergarten to, I believe it was 7th grade, I went to one Baptist school, and then I think it was either 7th or 8th grade, we switched over to another Christian academy, and that's where I finished out my schooling. And that was a little bit more contemporary. We were allowed to wear pants, and we could use the English Standard Version. Oh my! And we could listen to contemporary Christian music, which was very much a no-no in my church. So even the school where I went to, which was still very strict, was very contemporary and shocking compared to the very fundamental independent Baptist where I grew up. And then I went to a Christian university. It was the only option. It was that or Bob Jones University, where my older sisters went, and my twin and I were like, thanks, but no.
Hard no. Pass.
So, yeah, hard pass. We'd been there several times to visit my older sisters, and my twin and I were just like, no, thank you. So we went to the university where we had the absolute awesomeness of meeting Erin, and I can definitely say that is one of the really amazing things that did come from going there. But then, so I'll kind of stop there because you may have questions about my upbringing in the background, but definitely I grew up with all those words, Bill Gothard, King James Version, no cans, submission, and all that stuff from being in church and also in my education.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm having feelings over here. So I at this point, any listener who doesn't know what Bob Jones University does to someone who's come out of this high control religion, I encourage you to Google it, read about that particular university, and then extrapolate from that what you learn from that to like, this controls someone's entire life. It's not just like, oh, I choose to go to school here. It's like, no, this is indoctrination so complete that there is no you just casually do it. You're in it.
Yeah.
So
if you need like a moment to compose yourself, I could do like a Rich Mullins sound break here. Would that help?
What about Michael W. Smith? Do you know
a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
A few things.
Well, Leslie's what?
I know, Donna. I really know nothing about religion or the Bible,
spared.
so I'm always like, "What is that? What?"
Yeah.
Well, let me tell all of you that we read in the paper the other day that Bob Jones' enrollment is way down.
Thank goodness.
And they have gone through several presidents in a very short period of time, so they seem to be struggling a little bit. I don't really know why, but that's the headline.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I always felt like I had a lot of questions, but questions were not encouraged.
No, at all.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what do you remember having doubts and questions from an early age, and that kind of helped you practice this like critical thinking thing that was trying to be stamped out of your brain but would refuse to be eliminated?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I was interested to hear a little bit more, Donna, about what it was about your exposure to Bob Jones that made it a hard pass. I mean, if you're growing up in this environment, that's kind of all that you know.
Yeah.
Like, what set off your radar exactly? I mean, Erin's question about like you're not allowed to ask questions. Well, that's weird to encounter on a college campus. What was it about going to visit your siblings that pinged on your radar, since your radar had been conditioned to assume that what was happening there was awesome?
Great question.
What happened? Like, what? How did you know?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
I haven't really unpacked that, but I can say from my memories of seeing my sisters went through. So a little bit more background into, I have there's 5 of us all together. So I have 4 siblings, and my brother's it was my oldest sister, my brother, my other sister, and then my twin sister, and I were the babies. So my oldest sister was actually the one who headbutted the most and was very vocal about why this, why that, why the King James Version. If you translate it into French, does that make the French version of the Bible illegitimate in your eyes because it's a different language?
Oh, wow.
So I actually knew that she was already asking these kinds of questions, and she was just getting shut down left and right, told that she was just being rebellious, stop asking these questions, it's disrespectful. And then my brother went through his whole thing, which I'm not going to get into here. And then it was my older sister, her turn to go to college. And I think she just was like, that was the easiest route for her. But I did see her kind of headbutting also. So some of it was, I saw my sisters being shut down to the point where their rebellion was worsened because they weren't getting these answers, and because they didn't have a legitimate answer to, well, why is, if you translate it from the Hebrew into French, then is that illegitimate? And then going to Bob Jones, I just saw how oppressive. It felt very oppressive. Like, it's gated. it's a small community. Everything felt like there was a blanket over it, like in not a good way, not a snuggly warm blanket, like a suffocating blanket.
Yeah.
And there were all these rules. Like if you were dating someone, you had to go to the dating common and you had to be with a chaperone and you had to be like at least 6 inches apart. And these were real rules. Like you couldn't hold hands with anybody and you couldn't go off campus. I mean, this was also, I'm almost 40, so this was a while ago, but
this was 2000, 2000,
early on. Yeah. So it was
yeah.
just, it felt even more stifling and more so than, and when my oldest sister was there, she couldn't wear, they hadn't accepted pants yet. So it was like, it felt like a continuation of the already very oppressive, don't ask questions, just accept it. And it just felt like there was no room to breathe. And by that point, my twin and I were like, okay, we're reaching early adulthood or late adulthood, early like 20s. And we want some wiggle room. We don't want to go in the shadow of our sisters. That was kind of another thing for us, as we had a lot of expectations, I think, from already having 2 sisters there. And we kind of wanted to make our own path. And from the 2, it was the lesser of the 2 evils because my parents were not going to let us go anywhere else. Like we did not have an option to go to community college. Nothing. We didn't even have the option to go to Liberty, which is So that's its own trouble over there. But
so did you unpack with your sisters your reasons for not following in their footsteps then, or have you since talked about what you were seeing happening to them or with them?
No, they're still very much involved in all of that, and it's very difficult to broach any of those topics still at our age because they have still accepted that lifestyle, and it's very difficult as the black sheep of the family. And I've very much been told, like, well, you're not a Christian, so your opinions, your advice, all of this, it doesn't count. So I just am just like, whatever, I'm not going to unpack this with you. But yeah, so it's mostly just because I know it's going to fall on deaf ears. So
yeah, I'm
continuing my own healing journey, and they can eventually get on it if they want to. If not, I can't waste any more time and energy on it.
Oh yeah, it's such an opportunity. It seems like to have a real person-to-person moment. Making these sort of like life decisions, and I want to go to this college or that college, and this is what I see happening with you. It's just like it's right there, and to not be able to have that conversation then or now is, oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So at some point they stopped questioning and transitioned into acceptance mode of. Yeah, at least to a very significant level, acceptance.
Right. So it basically the system worked on them, and it sounds like it didn't work on you, Donna.
Yeah.
You were resistant.
Exactly.
You were resistant to the system.
So I don't like.
It took a while though.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't remember us having any pointed conversations necessarily while we were attending this also very conservative university, just somewhat less conservative.
So you two never, back in the day, you were never up late in the dorm room and have you ever thought?
Yeah, not
while we were in it.
Oh, wow.
No.
Is it because you were just so indoctrinated to even think about it?
It's almost like you're in this, you have to accept it to a certain extent just to get through, just to get by. You know what I mean?
Or there'd be too much cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, if you're bucking the system the whole time you're in the system, it's like, no, I'm not going to scan into chapel. Well, you get demerits and get kicked out. Okay, well, I already started this degree, so I guess I'm going to scan into chapel every day like I'm in a hostage situation. But you don't question it as much while you're in it because you just have to get through it. You're like, I just have to get through these classes, and I have these good friendships, so that's what I'll cling to.
But to not be able to talk about that with those friends while you're in it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it wasn't till, I'm not even going to guesstimate how many years later we started having these conversations more openly.
Yeah, there's also 2-year gap between I was a freshman when Erin was already in her junior year, and I came into it. My twin and I came into it just is still in acceptance mode, and I really didn't start breaking down until halfway through my junior year, and by then I was still in. Okay, I just need to, like Erin said, I'm still going to scan my card to get into like say that I'm going to chapel. And I remember I had a job on campus at that point, and I had to leave early to get to the job, which was the freaking cafeteria. And I would be stopped by the monitors who stood outside the chapel like 10 minutes before it ended. And they'd be like,
God,
where are
I
you
forgot
going?
about
I'm like,
them.
well, I have to get to the chapel before you guys let out. Otherwise I'm going to be late and I'm going to get in trouble for being late. So why are you standing here? It's like, maybe 10 minutes left, get a life. But at the time, I was so used to it. I was also raised by parents who were extremely strict. My dad was in the military. He also was very much like my way or the highway. So it's not like I really even had any kind of space anyway to have my feelings and my thoughts where I wasn't going to be told, stop questioning, just keep walking in that direction. So even though it was really annoying, it seems very small to be like, hey, I'm working literally on campus. I can show you that I need to get to the cafeteria, and they'll get mad at me if I wait because then everyone's going to be leaving at the same time. But instead of being like, get a life, I'm just like, okay, I just need to go. I have to work here.
Like you're constantly providing a justification for the smallest of outside the lines things.
All right, so I mean, I gotta ask, what happened in junior year, Donna?
So I was an English major, and I read, and that's when I became an absolutely voracious reader. And
okay,
I
there you
did
go.
not
there it is.
have. Yes, and that's why I'm all about education and children reading. And anyway, I did not have that kind of encouragement because, of course, when you're in a very suppressive and oppressive environment, they're going to take away that education and that strive for empathy that you gain when you read other people's perspectives. So I suddenly am reading all of this literature and gaining this empathy and beginning to realize, wait a second, the world is bigger than you said it was. And I do find it very ironic that that's when I started being like, there are so many answers that you either refuse to answer because you know there is none, or you berate me for the questions you berate me for having. And I took a mythology class, which again, we were not encouraged to study other religions. And even though we were a Bible minor, you had to have a Bible minor. Like that was there. You couldn't graduate if you didn't have the credits to have a Bible minor.
Yep.
But there was nothing even within that minor where you were allowed to study other religions unless it was in the context of why is this religion wrong against ours?
Yes. Or how do you convert this person?
Exactly. And so when I started reading mythology in English, I was like, oh, no one. I had a very liberal professor. God bless her heart. Looking back now, I'm like, I think she really, and I'm not going to say anything more than that, but like, I think she really was starting putting this in there, not on purpose, but because it was her mythology class. And she allowed for us English students to ask those questions of, is Adam and Eve a myth? And she put it very, very, like, she was like, it can be, by definition, it qualifies as a myth. And I think the way she navigated those answers really made me start understanding, hold on a second.
Wait a minute.
But I also loved how she would come back and say, the beauty of that is, even if you think it's a myth, if you align your life to live beautifully and to help others and stuff, it's still something good, even if you think it's a myth. So I think she still kind of brought it back to religion that way. But by my senior year, I had already started being like, I'm really seeing this is the bigger picture. And who are we to say I'm mine is right. And then after I graduated from college, there was a program where we could teach in China for a year. And I went through that. And I lived in Beijing for a year with students who had graduated from the same college. And that I was able to travel a lot while I was there. And that just completely, everything just shattered at that point. I was blown away by how sheltered I had been, by how purposefully ignorant I had been my whole life. Well, I was made to be ignorant.
Right.
I wasn't purposely myself, but
Right.
I was not put in an environment where I could blossom and these questions could be encouraged. After I traveled and saw the world for being so much bigger than what they try to cram into this disgusting religious box, that was it. I knew I couldn't go back.
So the worlds within worlds of books and the experience of living abroad is like,
Yeah.
In China, and how?
it really, yeah. Nice.
What did
You're gonna bust out the Mandarin while we're at it.
Wow.
Donna? What did your parents think about you going to China? Were they could you sense that they were this could be trouble?
No, because it was still within a program that was through my university, and I was still with students who had graduated from my university. Some of them were returning to China after multiple years. So even though I didn't know them personally, it was still like a branch of.
Okay.
We still had Sunday services. We all lived on one floor together. It was like a safe environment. We traveled together, and it was still very
Controlled.
Since it was a branch of it, they didn't really know that was going to happen. For
Okay.
them, it was more, oh my gosh, the safety. And I was the first one to branch out like that. And I think it was more any adults looking at their child saying, oh my gosh, I want you to stay here in my little nest forever and be safe. But no, I don't think they saw it coming, that I would be like, oh, hold on a second.
Well, so then
Yeah.
did you start having those late night dorm conversations with your cohort there?
She says no.
No, okay.
Silly
Like, just
question.
no, okay.
No, I'm kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
I clearly have the wrong baseline. I'm just not.
No, it's
Big
okay.
shock, Shay.
It's still, because it was still that environment. I didn't start having those conversations until about a year later, when I met my now husband. And been together for 16 years now. And it was actually meeting him. I started taking Kung Fu because I visited the Shaolin Temple. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool to take Kung Fu when I got home. And I started taking Kung Fu, and he was one of the instructors. And that was the only time I know. I was like, hey, I need some help over here. Yeah, I followed him around like a little puppy dog, and he had no idea. It was so cute. I was like, oh my gosh, will you notice me?
I had a clue, man.
What do I have to do? But,
I love it.
It wasn't until I realized I wasn't really a big dater up to that point. I had a lot of very complicated emotions towards men because of all the other crap that happens under like the religious veil.
Yeah.
And especially the Christian men that I was around and the Christian boys that I know my parents wanted me to marry, I just didn't have that. What I knew I started feeling with David, like, oh, wait, this is actually a really solid, good person. And it came with a lot of very complicated emotions because he was not a Christian, and I knew that would be trouble. So it really wasn't until I met him and felt really deep within my bones that this was the one for me. And it never felt like that before with any of the Christian men that I had ever, even be tossed at, because my sisters and my parents wanted me to marry somebody like that. And we started having those conversations. And the beautiful thing was, he never, even to this day, he never encouraged me to stop going to church. He never encouraged me to stop reading the Bible. He was like, go to church. I'll go with you, but I might be uncomfortable. So I don't know how often I'll go with you, but keep going to church. And even recently, he's like, would you feel better if he went back to church? I'm like, I love you, but no.
Thank you for offering hell no. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it was very easy as my relationship with him grew and as he was able to ask me the hard questions. And I remember at one point he said, "So you're not going to date me because you think I'm going to hell?" And I was just like, "No, this is the stupidest thing ever." So I was like, okay, but by that point, it's very easy. My family was treating me like the black sheep, and I had a lot of issues with my family once I decided that I did want to be with him. And it's easy for them to blame him for all of the fractures in my religion, but that was just the tip of the iceberg to what was already going on in my life. And I just knew that was there was a huge fork in the road for me. And either I chose him and did what I knew I was going towards anyway. And I'm glad I did, because again, we've been together for 16 years. Or I tell him, "No, you're not a Christian," but I didn't, really believe it anyway. That's when, but I think also when I think back on that time frame, he provided a very safe and encouraging place for me to have those doubts, to have those conversations that I did not have anywhere else. And I was allowed to have some space and say, "Do I really believe this?" And he never once told me what I should believe in. He just allowed for me to have that space to have those conversations. And that's just what I lacked. That whole time up to that point, I never had a space where I felt comfortable or allowed to have those kind of conversations.
I can't help but find it kind of fascinating that it was someone of the male gender who provided that space for you, because I don't know much about your background, just like little bits that we've exchanged by email. I know that the sort of overbearing patriarchy of the culture you were raised in was something the experience is really damaging. And along the way you had sisters and friends and compatriots who were female in the trenches with you. And the place where there was actually like an oasis where you could really start asking and feeling safe was with this guy. I think that really speaks to your resilience, that you were willing to experience that with someone, in the body type that had kind of been crushing you and all your buds all this time.
Very true.
I think that speaks to resilience on your part, that you're able to go, "Oh, well, this doesn't necessarily look like, the safe place at a glance.
Yep.
But if you hang out there a little bit, it turns out it really is."
Yeah. And that's a very interesting point too that you brought up, because we were always told that non-Christian boys only want sex. So when I was with David, he never once pushed me. Not at all. And even when I was like, "Okay, I'm done," and we were not married yet, he was just like, "I don't know. I don't want," he's like, "I don't ever want you to feel like I'm pushing you. I don't ever want you to feel like you have to. Like, I still love you. We can be together." But when I look back at all of the abuse that took place from multiple men who were supposed to be the people that we trusted, the people that led Christian ministries, that were Bible teachers, that were
the protectors,
missionaries,
quote
that were
unquote. Sorry.
Exactly. These men who used their positions to get these girls into private areas because, quote unquote, we're going to pray, or whatever the hell they said, and they completely abused their that position.
And was protectors is that a term? Is that a position?
So if you, sorry, Donna, I'll just kind of like segue and you please follow, jump in. But from my perspective, growing up, is no one in these circles will deny the fact that they think men are supposed to be in a superior role. They won't deny that ever. They'll be like, "Yeah, that's God set it up for men to be in this leadership role and make all the decisions," and they view it as a good thing of, "I'm protecting you. That's my God-given role." So me making decisions and being the whole power structure is a good thing because God
For
wanted
you.
it that way. Right. That we're supposed to submit to that because it's what's good for us.
Okay, but
Isn't that like...
But the outsiders are the ones who are after you as nefarious.
Correct.
purposes.
Correct.
Right.
So everyone outside this protector role is out to
Right.
get you, but I'm here to protect you from them, those
But,
bad guys.
Like you
but-
wouldn't set yourself, you wouldn't set a relationship up like that if you had the other person's well-being
Correct.
in mind at all. If you thought they
Yep,
were like
yeah.
a person
Yeah.
rather than say like a
Yeah.
pet. What?
Yeah, no, it says it doesn't make any sense to anyone that's like outside of this sphere because, of course, your mind would kind of automatically reject the logic of that, just
Right.
as yours just did.
You can't protect somebody by infantilizing them. Like fundamentally, that is not what that means.
Correct, which is why it takes from birth all the way
Yeah.
through your lifetime to condition you to accept these kinds of
that's-
parameters.
right.
So
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
Donna.
That's
please
really that's
jump
just
in.
it's sort of like one of those sort of freaky
Makes you feel icky.
like ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very brainwashy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So sorry, you were saying that is in fact not experienced as protection by the people who are supposed to be protected. But it was kind of never about
Yeah.
them. It was always about the protectors. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
Okay.
and the layers of brainwashing, it begins at a very young age. My informative years, it was if you are harassed or abused as a woman, it's your fault
Right.
because clearly you were wearing, pants or you were. I had such a horrible, and I still do, have a horrible view of my body because I am top heavy, if I'll just put it that way. I grew the top, my sisters grew the bottom, and I was always told that I had to wear looser clothes, and if anything happened to me, it was my fault because a man should not lust after me. And that was another thing growing up. I was like, why did God give me boobs if men were going to fall looking at them? And I remember getting to a point when I was a teenager where I almost like took a knife and cut them off because
Donna.
I hated the way I felt. I hated feeling like everyone was looking at me and it was my fault. I was never comfortable in my own skin. And that was another kind of level where when I met David and he was just like, heck yeah, they're awesome. It took me a really long time to be like, oh yeah, they are kind of awesome, and to be comfortable in my own skin. But even still to this day, I will dress more conservatively and hide them more because of my upbringing. And it's cute because David's always like, oh, come on, show a little more, but I just remember how that makes it so much easier for other men to prey on somebody like me who already feels like, well, if they do, then it's my fault, which then leads to I'm not going to say anything because I'm the one who's going to get in trouble. So it's set up in such a way where this man who's supposed to be in control can really do whatever he wants because he is in this system where the girls are blamed. They are told from the beginning that it's going to be their fault. And the men are given they're just given a blank pass to do whatever the hell they want. And it's very psychologically damaging, even if nothing, which unfortunately I think it's very difficult to find anyone who has gone through this system who has not been harassed in any kind of way. But if you ask that person, they will 9 times out of 10 tell you that they thought it was their fault the entire time.
Yeah, it's a particularly bad mind fuck. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah,
it's a mind fuck when you're told. So it's right that men are in these positions of leadership and control. That's how it's supposed to be, but they can control you and your behavior and make all the rules about you, but they can't be expected to control themselves. So you have to be the one to
her responsibility.
Police your own behavior, your own appearance, your own whereabouts when you go somewhere, and You know what I mean? Like, don't go out after dark, and don't wear that, and don't do this. And so you turn into your own policeman to supposedly protect yourself against the protectors who are in control of your movements in the first place. It's a real mindfuck. It's really something.
And if you
really
fail
is.
to do that, it's your fault.
your fault.
It's still your fault.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, Donna, going back
So
to
you
you.
have no
No, go ahead. You have
Sorry.
no. What were you saying?
you have no one to run to, and there's no repercussions, so you don't say anything.
Yeah.
Which that then leads to them continuing to do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so awful. Okay, so when you got with David and you started questioning and talking and discussing, I want to talk about when you started to give up some of those tenets of the church you were in, when you gave them away, when you left them behind, and how was that? And how did you feel about it? And how did you do it?
It was extremely difficult. Even though I began to really see what a very healthy relationship with a man and his dad. His parents are awesome. His dad passed away in 2017. It was really hard. But my parents decided not to come to David's and my wedding because they were against us getting married. And my father-in-law walked me down the aisle.
Oh.
And to see what a healthy family was. He has David also has a younger brother and sister. And as I started hanging out with them, I was like, wait, this is a normal family? But I remember being like, okay, where are the skeletons? Where are your deepest, darkest secrets?
Yeah.
Because there's no way.
It's hard to trust it. It's like, this can't be real. This can't be real.
And David was just like, whoa. And what are you going through? And I started dating him. And I remember he was the first one to tell me, go to therapy. Like, you need to heal from this. And it wasn't until I started going to therapy that I was like, oh my God, this is not normal. I did not have a good childhood. Holy crap. And my husband was there with me the entire time, and he saw me. I would come home and sob for an hour, just so broken, because I was constantly putting aside and sweeping under the rug everything that I had gone through. And he was the one who was saying, no, work through this. I'll be here every step of the way. I'm here for you. It's not healthy. And I remember even, like, his dad would hug me when he saw me, and I would stiffen up and be like, oh, why are you, like, oh, don't touch me. And I hate that now, looking back, how much I ended up growing to love him so much, and how he walked me down the aisle. And I wish that he were still here with us today. And I got to the point where I could hug him back and be like, oh, he's not trying to feel my boobs. Like, what? Like, there's an older man who just wants to hug me because he loves me? This is weird. Like, so I ended up moving in with David before we got married. And during that whole time, I was getting a whole lot of crap from my family. Not so much my twin. She's always been right there with me. We've always had our own little world. She's always been my best friend. But like my other siblings and my parents were like emailing me Bible verses and telling me how bad it was and that I would be judged by God. And like, it was just, David wasn't allowed to come to any of our family events because they would just not accept that I was with him. And I think that it was a lot easier for them to blame him for me walking away from the religion and not accept that, no, this was a long time coming. This was a long time coming.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult. It was very emotional. I was very torn. I would be very free and happy with his family. And he would see that. He would see that I would come back from my family, which he wasn't allowed to be around. And I would be tired and upset and like feel really bad for what they kept telling me, that God was going to judge me and that something was going to happen to me. Something horrible was going to happen to me. And it wasn't easy. And then as I continued to be like, this is exactly why I'm stepping away from it, because I can't believe that you would treat me like this.
Yeah.
I also began to realize how empty I felt, because with religion, they're always telling you, you're nothing without God. You're nothing. You're worthless. You're full of sin. You're vile. And it's only through God. It's only through doing this. It's only through being a Christian. And as I was walking away from that, and at the time I didn't know this, but looking back, I know that when your foundation cracks, you feel like there's absolutely nothing that you're standing on anymore. And I plummeted into a lot of self-doubt. I had no idea who I was anymore. I felt very lost. My dad was constantly telling me, like, oh, after all I've done for you, this is what you're doing to pay me back. And I didn't know how to respond to that. And I didn't know how to respond to my brother, like, constantly emailing me and texting me Bible verses when he did his own bullshit toward their family. And it was like I was torn. And then when I became pregnant with my daughter, before we found out that I was pregnant, but I was pregnant when my dad was like, well, you don't have a moral compass to raise children. When I had her, I had horrible postpartum depression. And now, again, looking back, she's almost 10, but looking back now, I'm like, oh, it's because I didn't think I had anything in me to raise her. And I didn't think I was going to raise her right. And I had no support from the man I wanted support from. And all you want from your parents is for them to be like, it's going to be okay. Not for them to be like, you suck. So it was a lot of being torn, a lot of trying to figure out how do I maintain my relationship with my family when they feel free to shove everything back down my throat, even though I had spent my entire life and my education learning all of this. And I know what the Bible says. Yeah. But yet when I turned around as I was going through therapy and I would try to bring up some things with them, they would tell me, well, now that you're not a Christian anymore, it doesn't really matter what your point of view is. It's not acceptable. So it was so easy for them to continue sweeping everything under the rug and putting what I like to call a Jesus Band-Aid on everything because, well, now that my life has changed and my perspective has changed, it doesn't matter what I say. Yeah. So even coming back to them and trying to heal some things didn't work. So what I had to really learn, especially after becoming a mother, was I have got to stand up on my own 2 feet and really dig into who I am and how awesome I am as a person and what do I have to give to the world and how strong can I be and who I am. And reading and therapy, reading a ton of books and therapy helped with that. And then looking at my daughter and just wanting so much for her to not experience any of that. And I knew that I had to be healthy in myself to help her. And then, of course, the whole way, David has been like my biggest cheerleader. And he's always been very supportive of me going to therapy and doing what I need to do. Again, to the extent of, hey, if you need to go back to church, I'm all for it. He's like, not really comfortable going with you, but and I think it's great. I don't want to go back to church anymore, but I think it's wonderful that he, even to that extent, is if that's going to help you, then go. But I won't. I was just thinking that again. But so yeah, I think because when you're going through that very oppressive and suppressive environment, feeling isolated and worthless is one of the best forms of control. Because if you feel united and you feel like you do have support and strength, then you will overthrow what's going on. So anytime that somebody, like a dictatorship or something like that, the first thing that they're going to do is try to make you feel worthless and isolated. So coming away from that, and that's why I think this podcast is so important. It's so important to realize, actually, you're not alone. You've just been made to feel like that this whole time because that's how they keep you under their thumb. But it can be a very depressing time, even though you'd think that it would be a time of celebration because you had freedom. Some of us may go through a huge depressive time period where we don't know who we are. And so to that person, I would say you're not alone and you can do it, get therapy, start reading books and the people who have gone through this, who have written their books, go to therapy, go talk to people who have gone through this, listen to podcasts like this, and know that you do have worth in who you are. It doesn't have to be found in anybody or anything else.
Yeah, that's spot on. I think the overall feeling I have now, like years removed and after the fact of going through this process, I now feel more myself and more lighter and like relieved than ever before. But that was not the case at the beginning. So I think what you're saying is very important, that like there's probably a lot of people out there having these questions and wanting something, to change, but it just feels so just too big. Like, how can I possibly leave what I have been raised to believe since birth? Like, how can I navigate what that will change in my family dynamic? How can I navigate what that might do to my marriage? How can I, it just feels too big. And to know that other people have not only done that, but on the other side of it are healthier versions of themselves than they've ever been. Like, I feel like that. I hope that's helpful for people to hear.
I really appreciate all of the folks who have been willing to share that process, partly just because it normalizes that, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot. It's going to be a lot of loss. It's going to feel terrible, and that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That's not some kind of indication that you've gone off the rails, or that you've stepped off like the path, or that like you are doing it wrong. It's like, it's just the pain of loss. And that's right.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too that in Donna's experience, and some of that I can also relate to, but the churches, and particularly like Christians still in the church, their response is to double down on the same things that you've always been told, as if that's going to fix you. They're just going to double down on the Bible verses, and double down on the I'm praying for yous, and double down on the you need to come back to this, instead of being the Davids of her life saying, I can see you're working through some very hard things. Like, I will be the safe space for that.
It might make sense that it comes from outside. For you, Erin, it came from folks in grad school.
Yeah.
But like, you've lived through the pain involved with leaving the church. I mean, surely you can kind of see why somebody wouldn't go through that.
Yeah.
And would be like, you know what? I'm going right back to the Bible, because it looks like you're walking through fire.
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
It's a big thing to take on. So I would just like to, once again, say thank you so much for doing that work, just to make the world a better place, and to kind of save you for the rest of us to get to hang out with, and then being willing to talk about it. Donna, I think you're right that just knowing that this isn't some one-off terrible moment that's happening to you, but that this is like a process, and people can talk about it, and like it doesn't have to be alone.
Yeah.
Donna, I would appreciate you speaking to something, because I grew up in a very laissez-faire religion. I was an Episcopalian. I was raised that way. And it was more about, going to the cocktail parties and what clothes you were wearing than the Bible or God. I mean, it was there. I guess I just didn't pay attention. It was there a little bit. But so so this is pretty foreign to me. And as I got older, I never really, read the Bible much or at all, or thought about it too much. But at some point I went, oh yeah, I really don't even believe in God. That's where I am. Oh yeah, if you're going to ask me. So my question is, when you leave a high control religion like that, or an oppressive culture like that, are you giving away your belief in God? Or are you just giving away that particular version of Christianity? Because, we've used terms like church. Well, you're talking about your church. My church was, going to the country club
Very
afterwards.
different. Yeah.
So when you leave, tell me what you're leaving. Which part is that confusing?
Great question.
Where do you go? What do you do?
That is a great question. And I think that it's a huge part, and why it can be so very emotional and very difficult and take a very long time to leave, because you are having to sift through what is it that you can keep and what is it that was toxic and that you have to give away. And that's going to be extremely personal to each individual. And it could be that 1 year after you've gotten rid of the big things, and the next year after you've gotten rid of a few more things. And so for me, I really, the part of the Bible that I love the most is that Jesus was so down to earth. And even if it is a myth, and it doesn't really matter to me whether you believe that it's true or if it's a myth, I just don't want you shoving it down my face. I think it's beautiful that the example that he showed was him like hanging out with the sinners and yelling at the people who were, buying and doing things in church. And he was telling the rich people that they wouldn't get to heaven. I'm like, dude, that guy, that dude, I'm all for him.
Yeah.
And I'm all for the example that he gave us. What I reject is what people do in name of religion that is so very toxic and so very negative and beyond what that example in the gospel is. So I don't believe that you have to accept him as a savior. I honestly don't even think there is anything after life. If anything, I really like the idea that your soul is in some way incarnated into something else. But that's just kind of beyond the religious aspect of it. But I think it is in what really comes down to it, and what I keep saying to my daughter is, if you need to find a way to have peace with the world and your mortality, because at the end of the day, the religion scares us with our mortality and what happens after we die, because no one actually knows and no one can come back and say for sure what it is. So it's easy to scare people with that, with their mentality and what happens after. So I just tell my daughter, we can go through all kinds of religions if you want, and you can pick something that helps, gives you peace, as long as you don't tell other people, that they have to follow it or whatever. I want you to have peace about your mortality, and I want you to have something that is getting you through each day. The crap that is happening, right now with politically, which is its own thing. Like, I want you to have something that gets you up in the morning and puts one foot in front of the other. And it could be, you can be agnostic, you can be an atheist. I don't care what it is, really. I don't. So it comes down to, are you individually able to be a good person with what you've chosen? Do you have peace with your mortality? And is this thing encouraging you to be a good person and help the world around you? Because it doesn't matter what it looks like at that point. And that's the point where I've come, where I'm like, I really like Jesus in the gospel, and that's what I want to emulate. Everything else, I think, is just a story. And I absolutely reject what quote unquote Christians do in the name of their religion.
Exactly.
Beautiful synopsis, I would say. And I think with Donna's former circles and mine, there's always been this like panicked response. Again, that's part of the control, is like, it's a slippery slope. If they start asking questions and go down this road, we'll lose them forever. And then they're destined for hell. It's like the panic is just so extreme. And it's almost like they think we haven't thought this through, but clearly from Donna's answer, she has spent inordinate amounts of time thinking about this, and I'm the same. And there's nothing about this I haven't thought through. So also would communicate to people listening to this, like, this takes a lot of thought and a lot of intentionality, and Donna has done the work to be in the place that she's at. And like family members, if they could just kind of take a step back and like think about that. Like, we've thought about this, we've agonized about this, we've done the work, we are at where we're at because this is where we need to be. And like, no, we're not somehow under threat of eternal damnation. Like, you can stop worrying about me, even from your own theological standpoint, because if you think that I was accepted these teachings at some point, according to your own theology, I can't lose it. So like, just take a chill pill. Let's all take a chill pill and like respect the fact that Donna has thought this through, respect the fact that I've thought this through, respect the fact that it's everyone's prerogative to think these things through and reason for themselves where they end up. So thank you for doing that, Donna.
What word comes to mind when I hear you, Donna, when I hear Erin, and when we've heard some of the other people with whom we talked about these high control religions, is empowerment. I mean, you all seem to be fully empowered, and that has to feel good. That's just my take on all of you.
It feels a hell of a lot better than my scared child self. I will say that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let Donna answer.
Yes, I do feel empowered, and I want my daughter to feel far more empowered than I am. But I wanted to say something else about the afterlife that came to mind. I don't know if you were taught this, Erin, but I was taught that like when we got to like the Jesus' throne or whatever, there'd be basically a slideshow of all the decisions that we made in our life. Where everyone,
oh God, how awful is that?
So our lives would be put on display. But what I'm thinking later on is, okay, but the people who were shouting that, spit flying out of their mouths from the pulpit, who are at the side abusing children, obviously don't believe that, because then they wouldn't be abusing these children.
Yeah.
Because that would be displayed, like what? So even within that, the fear of the afterlife and how you will be judged for your life, it falls through the cracks when you turn it right back on the people who are using this very same position to abuse the people under them. So even then, I'm like, I don't believe that, because if you really did believe that, you wouldn't do the crap that you're doing.
Well, I've learned through the years that denial and rationalization are powerful defense mechanisms.
Oh, yes.
So they're rationalizing to themselves that there's some reason why they have to do that.
Yeah.
It's sick, but happens.
Yeah.
Gosh, Donna, you have given us a lot to think about and given our listeners a lot to think about. And you really are just an impressive young woman. Just how you've grown and how brave you've been and what you're teaching your daughter and the risk you took marrying that non-Christian. I mean, come on. I got in trouble for marrying a northerner since I'm from the South. And then I married a Jewish person. I mean, we're just...
Leslie's all outside the bounds. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, not that I can do a synopsis of like all the paths you've taken, but to start from where we both started from, and like you in particular, what you went through, and then books started, putting the crack in the door, and then living abroad kind of widened the door, and then meeting David broke the door down, and then, therapy has kind of started to help rebuild, and your own work starting to rebuild, and like such a long process. But like, what would you say at this point in the process? What are you hoping for next as a way to kind of wrap up the time we have?
I just hope that the way I choose to live my life, by continuing to heal myself from the inside out, I can empower and encourage those around me and help those around me, especially my daughter. I just want, when people meet me and they hang out with me, I don't want them to be trying to figure out if I'm a Christian or not. I just want them to say that person has a good heart. And that's all I want. I want them to see that through the hard work that I've done, I just want to help the people around me and encourage and support them. And for them to know that if they need to talk, they can come to me, and there's no labels attached. And I'm not looking for any labels in anybody else.
Well, that is a perfect way to end today.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do better than that. It's be the change you want to see in the world. Boom.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Donna. We really enjoyed our conversation.
You.
Thank you. And so we're going to sign off now. We'll be back next time. And if you know anyone who wants to chat with us or email us, it's changeshardyall with no apostrophe @gmail.com. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Donna. Bye, everybody.
You're not